Hey everyone, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with our 5K subscriber Q&A video. And we're going to throw it on top of an epic battle replay in the USS Cleveland with with Land Warrior and the Black Prince on my team. The Q&A, there wasn't a whole lot of questions really thrown in there, and I think I answered a lot of questions during the last live stream, during the first live stream, I guess. More accurately, but we'll go over some of the ones that I found in the 5K update video. And the first question comes from Red Titan 75. What museum ships have you visited, and do you plan in the near future to visit any others? The first ship I visited was the USS John F. Kennedy when it was parked in Norfolk, Virginia in 2001. I saw it as part of the Boy Scout National Jamboree, but we were not able really to see much because other than the flight deck and the hangar and the bridge, as the ship was still in active service. So we didn't really get to see a whole lot of the ship, and it was, I don't want to say it was a letdown, but I mean, I guess we saw the most important bits, and at the time I wasn't really super interested in warships, so to me it was kind of a, whatever. The next museum ship I visited was actually the HMS Belfast in London when I was there with my family in 2006. But at the time, the ship was not nearly what it is today in terms of stuff to do. It was a self-guided tour with very little information on board. There wasn't a whole lot of like placards hanging around explaining what things were. And as a result, we didn't really learn a whole lot there, other than I did get corrected by somebody on board. For some odd reason, I thought the main guns were 5-inch guns, and I found out they were 6-inch guns. And I really think it was my visit to the Belfast that really kind of sparked my interest in warships. Now, I've always loved World War II ships, and so that's never been like a huge surprise, but I never really got real in-depth into any of them except for the Iowa class until this game came out. The only other ship that I visited, obviously, is USS Iowa just this year. In terms of other ships I would love to visit, there's a lot of them. Basically, if it's a museum ship in the United States, I'd love to visit it. And I think the biggest reason for that has more to do with my interest in how these ships are put together and how everything was designed to work together. That, to me, is one of the most fascinating aspects of warship technology. The actual ships themselves are cool, too, the histories behind them, but, you know, what I found is that the vast majority of ships that are museum ships today really don't have these extensive combat histories that would really make their actual history super entertaining. That's not to say that that's true of all of them. There are obviously those out there that are more than interesting on their own in their own histories, but overall, I think, to me, the biggest thing that interests me the most is how everything plays together. You know, how a ship's engine room factors into the layout of the guns and all of that. That kind of stuff really interests me because, you know, I went to school to be an engineer. So, the short list, though, I definitely want to get to see the Wisconsin. That's by far my favorite of the Iowa class, and it is a fantastic ship. And my understanding is it's in really good shape and that it's very complete. So those things, to me, that ship sounds interesting to me. Obviously, the rest of the Iowa class, the Massachusetts and the Alabama, I'd like to get to see those. Those are a little bit lower on my priority list. I would also love to see all of the oh, there's a couple of Fletcher class destroyers floating around. You've got the Kid. Trying to think of what, there's some other ones floating around too. I'd like to get to see all of those. I would love to see the Texas before it sinks, because the state of Texas doesn't deserve that ship, in my opinion, with the way that they've not kept it up to date, not kept it safe, but that's a different story for a different time. In terms of other ships, though, there's really not a whole lot of other ships that really just strike me as being ships that I must see. Like carriers, you know, I'm of the opinion that while the ships themselves are cool, there's a lot less going on technically, like there would be on, say, a battleship. And with that comes the problem of I don't get nearly as entertained by those ships as I do other ships. And really, I think the heart and soul of a carrier is her aircraft. So Yeah. Then adding to the fact that most of the aircraft carriers still around as museum ships today are all converted. They're not in their World War II configuration, and I find even less reason to want to go visit them. So, okay, so the next question comes from number one garbologist. What kind of whiskey do you like to drink? Well, Maker's Mark, because that's about all I can get where I'm at. But I do think I should probably address where the name comes from more than anything. And I think I actually answered this in the previous Q&A, but it's easy to see how whiskey plus lounge equals alcohol, so I better clarify this for some of the guys that weren't around for the original Q&A video. Basically, the name comes, the whiskey part of this is actually short for Whiskey 1-1, and that name comes from the A-10 pilot that was in the game Armored Fist, which was a tank. I don't want to call it a simulator because I don't know that it was a simulator, but it was a tank game made in the late 90s or early 2000s. And that's where that comes from. I was a huge, and still am a huge A-10 fan. Next question. Mike, I'm going to butcher your last name. Swabados? How much money have you spent on the game, and what was my first tier 10? Well, the answer to the money question is probably far more than I should have. I guess I don't know. I don't keep track, and that would drive most people insane. And it really wouldn't surprise me if that number was over the $1,000 mark for the 3 years that I've been playing this game. And that sounds ridiculous when you think about it, but you have to keep in mind my entire the money I get from this YouTube channel actually gets funneled right back into the game for more content. And so that helps offset a large part of that. The vast majority of the money that I get in this comes that I get from this goes to paying for, you know, premium ships and other things like that. So most of that money has been earned through my time on this YouTube channel. Well, I don't know about most, but a large portion of that money has come from this YouTube channel. I would estimate probably about 3/4 of it. First tier 10, USS Montana, long before she was actually the monster that she is today. I was extremely disappointed with the ship at the time. In fact, if you go back and watch my original, and I mean like way back before I was ever this serious about this YouTube channel, you can hear it in my voice how disappointed I was with that ship. And it even comes through in the redo video of it when we revisited it again. I need to probably do an update video on it and the Iowa now that both of them have had their citadels lowered and the ships are way different today than they were. But we'll see if I actually get to doing that. It's real low priority because it still doesn't change much about how the ships play. The overall play style is still the same. The difference comes in my complaints about the ship's durability. Little Hippo, or Lil Hippo. Where and how do you learn about the history of the ships in World of Warships? Well, the vast majority of that information actually comes off of Wikipedia. I know that seems like a cop-out, but there are very few ships in this game that I actually commit to memory their full histories, especially when it comes to trying to keep everything straight. The Iowa class, since I've done so many years worth of history on them because I've been interested in them for so long, a lot of that stuff has been committed to memory. The U.S. standards, so in this game that's only the New Mexico and Colorado and Arizona, but in real life the Nevadas, New Mexicos, Pennsylvanias, which would include the Arizona, Tennessee and Colorado classes. Those ships I have a pretty good working knowledge of because, well, it's such an interesting time in U.S. naval design. But beyond that, everything else pretty much comes from Wikipedia, so, yeah. that may come as a surprise to some. Bravo Alpha Zero, what do you think of carriers as a whole, and do you think it's worth the learning curve and grind for a beginning CV player? Well, I guess I don't feel super qualified to answer this question simply because of the fact that I really don't enjoy playing carriers. It requires a lot of mental concentration, and so there's an aspect of I guess training, you could call it there, that it requires you to get used to. It's okay, but at the end of the day, I personally, if you enjoy that style of play, so this would be my recommendation. Go and get a tier 4. My recommendation of the 2 tier 4s currently is to get the Hosho. It's far easier to play. In the Hosho, if you like the way that top-down real-time strategy game feels, then by all means, go ahead and continue on down the line. I mean, I think it gets a little bit more tedious when you have to manage, 5+ squads of aircraft, as Wargaming somehow thinks that this style of gameplay is fun. It's really not to me. It gets real frustrating, especially if you're playing against somebody who actually enjoys that style of play. But overall, I mean, it's another ship line, so if your goal is to get well-rounded in the game, it would be silly for you not to play them. I think that this last time around, Wargaming really missed the boat, pardon the pun, with regards to how they could have fixed carriers. And I really think that had they taken the time to actually to address some of the problems with the U.S. carriers, rather than their kind of half-cocked fix for them by increasing the micromanaging, I really think they could have gone a lot further and actually fixed CV gameplay. My wish list there for carriers is quite simple. Scale carrier aircraft hit points per tier, average tier of the game. Right now, they don't, and so a tier 6 carrier in a tier 8 match is an absolute frustrating game to play, and as we all know, tier 6 ships see a lot of tier 8 gameplay. If you are a tier 10 aircraft carrier in a tier 8 match, you just absolutely dominate the game, and I think that that's part of the hard part of balancing out carriers in this game, is this idea that, well, we don't really care if there has to be some advantage. Well, the problem is that there's too much of an advantage for being top tier in a carrier, and there's zero advantage, there's zero capability for you to do anything when you are bottom tier. And so if you're a bottom tier carrier in this game, you just get absolutely run ramshot over. You just get destroyed by high tier AA, and if you're top tier, you're untouchable. I think that's wrong. And I think if you scaled it based on the average tier of the game, the hit points of aircraft by the average tier of the game, I think that this game would be a lot less frustrating for the vast majority of people. Plus, it wouldn't feel like you just have absolutely zero recourse against carriers. Especially when they are 2 tiers higher than you, which is entirely possible later on. If they did that, plus reducing the number of squads down to what the US used to have for squads, so at tier 10 I think it was a maximum of 5 squads, that would be fine by me. So by the time you got to tier 10, you got to 5 squads, I think that would be acceptable. That's about the first time that you really get the opportunity to actually you can micromanage 5 squads fairly easily. The vast majority of people can do that. It comes when you're managing, 7, 8 squads. It seems like some of these carriers have. It can get real annoying to micromanage that many squads of aircraft. I'm looking at you, high-tier Japanese carriers, because that's you. So those 2 things, I think if they fixed those 2 things, I think carriers would be a lot more fun to play, and I think I would have less issue with them than I currently do. So those are the last couple questions that I had. If you've been watching the video in the background, you've seen some pretty heavy island abuse here by myself and Land Warrior and the Black Prince, and it's been a pretty interesting battle so far. So we're up to 105,830 damage, 4 kills. Gonna secure that 5th. There's the Kraken. And then we have Broadside Cruiser Molotov coming out. Ooh. Can we get a 6th kill? Not that salvo. Maybe this salvo. He's only got 500 hit points left. Get there. Yes. So there is our 6th kill, and now it's time to play Chase the Fuso down. Well, and there's an Akatsuki somewhere. Probably over where that smoke cloud is. Who wants to guess? So we've pretty much spent this entire match hiding behind islands, and it's, well, we got ourselves a Confederate and a Kraken out of it. We're up to 107,000 damage, but we've still got a full health Fuso to go, plus that Akatsuki wherever she's at. And pretty much demonstrated the exact reasons why this ship is very strong when it is behind islands and has hard cover. And doing a pretty good job here, not gonna lie. Looks like Land Warrior has attracted all of the attention of this Fuso. Trying to get some AP salvos off into him just to try and get some damage, but not really succeeding in doing a whole lot in terms of damage. Again, trying to use the island cover to avoid getting just absolutely destroyed by this Fuso. And that would be my recommendation. If you're playing this ship and you need some help because for whatever reason you're just not playing it well, islands. Islands are your friend. It may not seem that way, but islands are definitely your friend. Incoming torpedoes from Akatsuki. There's Akatsuki, she just popped out. Probably not what she wanted. This would be the only way that this could be worse is if she was facing off against an Atlanta again. For the history buffs that get that joke, that can be kind of funny. So Black Prince is off to chase the Akatsuki here. We're gonna go turn around and we're gonna try and chase down this Fuso. Okay, so there goes the Akatsuki. And there goes Black Prince. The Akatsuki managed to get him with the torpedoes. So once again, island abusing. This whole match has been nothing but. And IFHE on this captain, obviously. I really do look forward to the line split for these because I just think it's going to be a very, very, very strong line. Especially if they give half as much credit to these ships as they deserve. I think this Fuso is running the fire prevention skill, or not fire prevention, so that only can have fires on the middle section, basically. Much harder to actually get fires. And, of course, Land Warrior goes down somewhere in there. He needs to, quote-unquote, get good. He's gonna say something about, I suck. That's usually what happens. Fuso engaging a battleship now instead of looking at the cruiser that's in open waters or the New York that's at point-blank range, but we're continuing to rack up damage here slowly but surely. 114,557 damage. About 10,000 to go. And continuing our engagement in Fuso. 6,800 hit points. Ooh, he's healing now. Only really getting a little bit of damage. That's because the vast majority of his superstructure has been saturated with damage. So, and there's the end of the game. Ended with 121,976. I think was the final damage count. 979. So basically under 22,000. 6 kills. 1,960 base XP again, Kraken and Confederate. Only 20,000 damage and 8 fires. Really not the most impressive fire damage number, but hey, I'll take it. I won't complain. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you for watching.